Is AI coming for my job? Is it coming for your job? I talked to Davis about this stuff on his Taekcast, which I am also showing on Mayo Media Network. So you smash the like, you sub to the channel, and sit back and enjoy a palate cleanser from all of the US Open content going down. Doesn't mean we're not going to be talking about golf in this episode. We are. We're going to be talking about AI, its impact, especially on our business in podcasting, recession stuff, and my thoughts on why hockey is not more popular in the United States.
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Pat Mayo, Mr. PME, I have a burning question for you that I've been tossing through in my mind. Would you listen to a podcast about something that really interested you that was AI generated, that did not come from a human being?
Depends on what it is, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is probably most people's answer. The one that I have been tossing back and forth in my head, I don't think I would be interested in AI generated like sports content, like DFS.
I disagree. So I think that there is a market for AI. So I probably could have done it by now, but I haven't. And I'm sure that there are other places that do it, but using a newsletter service every single night.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is if I wake up in the morning and there were injuries or standout performances or minutes adjustments in the NBA, I would like to receive a newsletter every single morning if I cared that much about the NBA, which I don't. But if I did, that I would just get this info drop to me every morning in my inbox, being like, oh, this guy got hurt late. This guy didn't play because of this. Maybe he's not going to play in the future. Just to have that information. Football would be incredible for this. You could throw it out every single day. Here's who practiced. Here's who didn't. You could synthesize that through AI to create a 6-minute podcast that if you just wanted to listen to it and not read it, because, you know, people hate reading these days, that I think that there is definitely a benefit to that versus me taking the exact same newsletter and doing what we're doing right now. Like no color, no spin, nothing like that. Just here is what happened. Here's the injury the guy's dealing with. Here's how long he's expected to be out. Here are his potential backups. Here's what you might see. Just almost a script that AI could read for you. I just worry right now, especially with AI, that they get so much wrong that that's a real problem.
Yeah. So I was, I think, one of like the first like 3 creators to like give my stuff to Takes, to the thing that Bales and Spears are doing. And some of it is like literally exactly what I said, right? Like Jalen Milroe. I like Jalen Milroe in these super flex drafts that are on Underdog or whatever. And then what you'll notice if you spend any time messing with these things is it will pull in something that it knows from its memory that is now outdated, right? So it'll be like, oh, Deshaun Watson starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns or whatever. He's a really good pairing with David Njoku as an upside late round stack. And it's, well, you know what's really dangerous is you're probably more likely to sign up for an AI related thing that you don't know is AI generated because you're not an expert in the subject material. So a great example would be like, and I'm sure there are literally thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of AI generated newsletters out there, right? So let's say I sign up for an AI generated newsletter about, I don't know, what, Canadian stocks, right? The Canadian politics, right? There's a good one. And I mean, who knows maybe we could talk about that a little bit later. I am not well versed enough in the subject material to know what's outdated or what's just straight up factually wrong. So I would just read this AI generated thing and be like, sure, yeah, why not? So that is definitely a holdup, right? Is that you have to fact check anything you create with AI right now because it just gets stuff so obviously wrong.
So I had to mute the Takes account because they always tag me. I appreciate it. They tag me like when they take one of my opinions about golf or majors that are coming up, but it was just, you drinking a beer?
No, this is a prototype of there's a company here in St. Louis, First Form. It's like a fitness company. One of my buddies works there. This is a prototype energy drink that's not on the market yet.
Okay, some black market energy drinks in the morning. That's where you want to be.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
one of the things that Takes was unable to decipher, and this is likely my fault, they didn't know when I was being sarcastic or not. So I would get attributed to these takes that I was just mocking. And they're like, Pat thinks da 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 da. It's like, I think the
Right.
opposite of that. That's really strange.
Yeah. So that, I mean, and how, like, I mean, I'm sure there is a way to code or teach a model that, but like, that is why, you know, there's a lot of work to be done left on, I mean, on like my experience is with any AI thing, like it's not even close to me. Like, you know, you get a lot of this AI doomerism, like, oh, this is gonna steal all these entry level jobs and yada, and maybe it will. In fact, it probably will take away a lot of entry level jobs. But in terms of like content creation, particularly when it comes to like color, I can't ever see myself being like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna listen to a 45-minute podcast about the Crimean War where both the hosts are AI generated, right? It just, I
I
don't
could
know.
actually see listening to something like that because I would be wanting it for information. But
Right,
I don't listen to podcasts for information. I
right.
listen to podcasts for entertainment. And unless AI can solve that, I mean, I have enough of a problem trying to generate that on my own. And that's what I do professionally. That if a computer just comes and market corrects me in terms of like comedy and sports put together as one, I'm absolutely cooked.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely cooked. And like, look, maybe there will become a day. I guess just I come from at the whole thing from a place of being interested, right? Um, as opposed to just being, well, this is just definitely bad. Because I feel like a certain subset of the population just comes at these large language learning models, and they're just like, this is bad. This is dead. This is Terminator. This is going to lead to the downfall of humanity. And maybe that's naive of me, but that is not where I'm at.
I can see in certain sectors why the advancement of AI, think about something like healthcare. If you can get AI to diagnose you well beforehand without having to go see a doctor to run tests, that there's certain like biorhythms or metrics that they can
Right.
measure through you, or certain pattern trends, be like, oh, you are now like at higher risk for X. I could see how
Right.
that could save a bunch of lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are literally, you know, hundreds of thousands of applications for these things. But I guess obviously selfishly, I'm just thinking from my perspective. Like, are there a subset of people out there that actually engage with fantasy football content who like just want just the facts, ma'am? You know, and maybe there is. Maybe
I,
maybe there
I
maybe
do
that's a
believe
large
that there
proportion.
is, but I don't think it's necessarily the podcast crew.
Right.
I think if you're listening to a fantasy football podcast, number one is you want 70th percentile info or better, like takes.
Right.
Like even as bad as I am at fantasy football, if you listen to my fantasy football shows, I'm not giving you actively bad advice. I might not be giving you the best
The
advice
best
that's
advice.
going, but listening, if you listen to my show and you played in a league with 12 people and the other 11 people didn't do any sort of like, they did their own research on this, like they read
Ah,
articles. I mean, maybe not even did read articles, maybe they just, here's who I think they should play. I know ball. I'm going to figure it out. If you
right.
listen to my show, you'd probably win your regular season. I can't guarantee you'd win your league because the playoffs are a bit tricky. But just between, you should pick up this guy because of injury stuff. Here's a good waiver move. Here's a good trade to make. Here are the rankings every week. Like my rankings and my content is good enough to get you versus people who are doing nothing. Like it's going to be a huge advantage to listen to me. But that's not why people are listening. They want info that doesn't suck, but they want to kill 45 minutes too.
Yeah, they want something that keeps like the back of their brain entertained while they mow the lawn or do the dishes or whatever. Yeah. I mean that or keeps their brain from going insane while they're at their, you know, their desk job, right? I mean that's a huge, like, for specifically for the live streams. Like I do these big long live streams, and yeah, I think people just like to hang out, right? And I don't know. Do you want to hang out with a computer? I don't know. Maybe some people want to hang out with a computer.
I would say the answer is yes to that question. People would love to. There's enough people on Reddit who engage with bots all day long that I'm pretty sure there is a market for these sorts of things.
Okay, before we branch out into another topic, I want to talk about the PME live show. How did that come about? How can people get tickets? Where can they go? The PME live show.
I believe you're going to put it in the description of this show, right?
Correct. Yes.
So you can do it there. It's in Toronto on Saturday, June 7th. So this upcoming weekend. The Canadian Open is going on this weekend as well. Although, despite being called TPC Toronto, nowhere near Toronto. So if you're coming to the live show, you're probably not going to the golf that day. But it's downtown. It's next to CN Tower, Skydome. We rented at a place. I think capacity is 250. I think we have like 175 sold right now. There's seats for 190 people. So if you want to come and hang with us. We were trying to figure out the best time to do this. We figured it was now. It was going to be next weekend because we were going to do a US Open Cut Sweat live show along with a Cuss Corner, but it's also Father's Day weekend, and I should probably be home with that for my kids. So we decided to schedule it a week in advance. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's me. Just to get Cuss to agree to do this, to fly to a city, be put up in a hotel, it's a big undertaking for him. So he has said this is the only ever time that we're doing this. Although I think he's going to have so much fun that he'll want to go.
He's going to want to do it again.
I was like, my man, we need to sell more tickets than this if we're going to make a tour out of this. But it's me, Jeff, and Tim. Garion, Pizzola, and Cam will all be on stage. Kenny Kim's going to be lurking around. Paul and Cody are going to be there as well. So just a lot of people from the MMN universe if you want to come out and hang. But we're going to do like 2.5, 3 hours, and we're just going to do a Cuss Corner. It's going to be an absolute laugh. We're really excited for it. We want as many people to show up as possible because I think with the crowd atmosphere that it's going to be a ton of fun. But that's where I'm at with it right now. And I'm curious to see how it goes. I am weirdly a nervous public speaker. I think doing this is going to be a little bit different, but having given like best man speeches at weddings, it's not, you'd think I'd be really good at it. And people tell me I'm good at it. I don't feel good when I'm doing it. I don't feel comfortable like I am doing my show or sitting here talking to you. Although I was given the piece of advice, just stare at one thing in the background. And then it's like talking into a camera. It's like when you try to engage with everyone in the crowd that you start stumbling, you start getting nervous, that if you can just go up there, have an idea, because I don't script anything out. So I'll have 4 or 5 bullet points that I want to hit, write a joke or two to hit off the top and go with it. But it's a lot different. And I think a lot of it has to do is the anxiety of sitting here speaking into a camera. Sometimes I have guests in studio, obviously, and that is really no different to me. I've been doing this long enough, but I'm very comfortable in this setting that when you start throwing a bunch of people in front of me, it just triggers a different part of your brain that you then have to get used to. But I think us doing it on stage where we will be interacting with the crowd, but it's mainly just like we're doing a regular show. I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that about public speaking. Cause like, I mean, you know, the fun fact that everyone says is people are at a funeral, people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. More people are afraid of public speaking than of dying. I can't relate to that at all. Like I like live for it. Like sign me up. I would go on a stage in front of 1,000 people I don't know with like no topic in mind just to do it. Like it just absolutely jazzes me up. But I mean, I feel like you will probably hit your stride pretty early on in that. Like once you get the opening lines out or whatever, and you start cracking jokes with Pizzola or everyone starts laughing at Cuss first thing or whatever, it's gonna be over like immediately.
I would agree. And even like with the public speaking thing, like I get nervous and have anxiety about doing it. Would never stop me from doing it. I guess that's the difference.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like that probably is the way for most people. Is like, oh, if I get this opportunity, I have to do it. Live podcasts are just interesting, though. I mean, I've always thought it would be kind of fun. I mean, my audience is like way too spread out across the country and not nearly as big as the PME, but it is something I would love to do eventually. I mean, it's really common for like Los Angeles based podcasts, like the Ringer guys, like Danny Kelly and those guys do it every summer. They've done it, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row. Now they have like a Ringer fantasy football meetup, a live fantasy football podcast. I mean, can you imagine that audience? That has got to be an interesting group of people.
They always try to get me to come to the fantasy football fest that I believe is in Canton, right around the Hall of Fame games. Like, I don't know if I can do that. I know JJ goes every single year and he has a blast doing it. I just feel like that's no longer my crowd.
Yes, Reeves and Silva and Thorman and all those guys. I'm in a group chat with them, and they for like each like the last 3 years, they've really tried to get me to go. I mean, frankly, I really hate leaving the house and traveling and being uncomfortable. It's just I don't know. It's not you guys. It's me.
I love getting out of the house and traveling and doing all of this stuff. It's just, I feel like 10 years ago, that really would have been my jam when I was doing wall-to-wall fantasy football coverage. I just don't feel
Right.
like I do enough fantasy football coverage anymore that I don't think anyone would know who I am.
Well, I think that would be okay. I think people would know who you are, but certainly
Would I have to bring my fantasy football awards from behind me? It's like, yo, I was the football writer of the year in 2013.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder, like, where I guess all the new people to fantasy football, all the like 22-year-olds who play fantasy football, they would not know who you were. They probably don't even know who Matthew Berry is. They only know who is on TikTok, right? That is where they get all of their fantasy football news content.
So Sal is selling this thing out.
Oh, I mean, Sal could probably do a live event where like 1,000 people came. I would bet.
That's nuts. Good for Sal.
Maybe more. I mean,
I guess my question would be, if it's all these like young kids on TikTok, can they afford to go anywhere?
That's a good question, because you get these like once a week there will be a panic-stricken article that is written about, oh, Gen Z's not doing X, Gen Z's not doing Y, Gen Z's not what was the most recent one I saw was Gen Z doesn't leave their bar tab open all night. They close it with each individual transaction. So every time they go up to the bar, they just they close it right away.
I don't think that is exclusive to Gen Z. I did that for years until I actually made some money.
Apparently it's an American thing to leave your tab open, and apparently in like Europe and elsewhere, it's a more common thing to just do each individual transaction. That was in the comments of this article that I read.
I could see that, because I always hear like waitresses and waiters being up in arms if like anyone asks to like split the bill at a restaurant, but that's not really a thing in Canada. It's assumed that you're going to be splitting everything.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the live show,
it's not that hard to figure out. As long as you tell them before. I mean, you don't have to tell them here, but I would guess in America it'd be the same way. 8 people come in and be like, look, we're not going to change seats. We want individual bills. Can you just do it that? I think if you're upfront with it, it's not that big of a deal. If they haven't been keeping track of it, then they get all pissed off, which I can see. I was having some problems sleeping. When anyone has little kids, that's probably going to be the case. They'll come up, wake you up in the middle of the night for no real apparent reason. So you're waking up, you're going back to sleep, you're waking up, going back to sleep. It's not the best sleep. I put my Apple Watch on and tried to track my sleep tracker. It was not going well. A lot of that changed once I got a Helix mattress, however, because I was able to customize it to both what I want, what my wife wants, and now we are sleeping throughout the night. The little noises that would just normally wake you up when you're not sleeping well, no longer the case for me. No more back pain either, because I'm actually sleeping on a mattress that is perfect for what my back demands, which is a lot because I have a terrible back. The one that I had before my Helix mattress, I spent a lot of money on it. It was bad after like 2 years. It had like the divot in it from where I sleep. It was unflippable. It was a horrendous waste of money. Not only is the Helix mattress I have now way better, it was also significantly cheaper. And it just showed up to my door in a box. Very easy to get onto my bed frame and just start using right away. So you can have all your problems solved with a Helix mattress as well. So you can go to helixsleep.com/Mayo for 20% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/Mayo for 20% off site-wide. Be sure to enter my name at the checkout so they know that I sent you. helixsleep.com/Mayo. I've been telling you about Skims for a while. The men's brand is amazing. It's all I'm wearing now. I bought enough pairs of Skims. They sent me some at the beginning. That's how they get me. They sent me 2 or 3 pairs, and I was like, these Skims are amazing. I'm going to wear these all the time. But I only had 3 pairs. So then I had to go use my own promo code at Skims and go get more pairs. So I'm covered for at least 2 weeks, because that is how comfortable they are. It's not only protecting the junk, The junk is in a top-notch position in my skins. They're not sagging around. I'm getting old. I'm past 40. As soon as I turn 40, I think my balls drop like 3 inches. It's no good. But I'm playing a ton of golf right now. They keep me comfortable on the course, and I'm a connoisseur of tight pants. Shocking to the viewers, I know. But you don't want to get bunched up. You wear boxers, it gets clumpy. Looks like you have a fupa on the go. That ain't no way to live. You want some skims to make sure that everything is a sleek look, both personally and how it fits, and aesthetically for when people see it. You don't want that bunching up. It just looks weird. It's uncomfortable. It's nothing that you ever have to deal with again if you have Skims. So shop Skims Men's at skims.com and let them know that I sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select the Pat Mayo Experience in the drop-down menu that follows. Skims.com/Pat Mayo. The time has come to get some new golf clubs, and that means one thing. Heading over to the local PXG store for a fitting. They make the best golf clubs, period. My handicap has remained about the same this season. I've had the transition from my old irons over to PXG irons. I can tell you the main difference for me is that I'm starting to hit the ball like a player of my handicap is. I'm not just relying on short game and putting anymore. My old clubs had those thick backs, and my 7-iron would go anywhere from 160 to 210. There was no control over the club. With my new PXG irons, I can flight the ball the way I want it. If I want to hit a draw or a fade, I can do that with these clubs. There's so much customization that goes into it. That's why the fitting was so important for me. And the fastest way to improve your performance on the golf course is a PXG fitting. PXG fitters are highly trained, highly experienced, incredibly experienced even, and have a deep understanding of how to optimize your clubs to get the most out of your swing. That's what they did for me. My game is about to go over the ledge. My goal this year was to break 75 and to shoot at least 1 under on a 9 somewhere over the course of the season. I've been flirting with it already. Frankly, it's my short game and putting that have been letting me down. Now that I hit my iron so well, I'm in spots that I'm just not normally used to being. Hitting 4 irons and 5 irons and skying them up, getting them to land softly is just a whole new world to me, and it's all thanks to my PXG clubs. Plus, PXG fittings are educational and fun. So schedule your fitting today, and for a limited time, you could save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/PatMayo. That's pxg.com/PatMayo to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/PatMayo. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Now, let me tell you the PME event that I would love to attend. A PME scramble. So you get,
I've thought about it.
Like, we get a golf course, we have Underdog sponsor it. And it's like the the Creator Classic. Didn't they play that at Pebble? I think, more or less.
Well, they did the DFS Open the week before the pandemic started. I went to that. That was a ton of fun. You have to ask Joe. Joe and Baroff put it on. It was in Florida. It was a ton of fun. It was around PGA National time, so the then Honda Classic. We had a great time doing it. A ton of people showed up. I would love to do that with the fans. I actually think that would be a ton of fun. I think more people would actually come to that than like a live show.
Yes. Yeah, people would fly in for that, right? That would be like, people would be incentivized to change up their routine. Like, that would, like, no, I mean, I don't know, maybe someone will fly in for the live cuss corner.
Oh, we got 2 people from Italy coming, a few people from San Diego, a bunch from South. Didn't realize the PME was such a hit in South Carolina. Very weirdly enough, because there's no Underdog and no DraftKings in Ontario anymore, I've actually lost a lot of my Toronto base.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I'd forgotten that that Ontario was no longer a legal province. The biggest soccer DFS player on DraftKings was from Ontario. No idea. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I knew that was a big bummer. You'll get it.
Where in Ontario was he from? Because there are ways to get around it. For example, if you live in Ottawa, you are 3 minutes from the Quebec border and just drive across to Quebec. Or if you live in London, or Windsor, you can just drive across, go underneath the river and go to Detroit if you want to. There's
really a town called London in Ontario?
Yeah, London, Ontario.
No one stretched any muscles coming up with that name.
Well, if you ever make it to downtown Toronto, you will see that most of the street names, like the oldest streets that are completely downtown, are just British generals, like Tecumseh Avenue and things like that.
I mean, look, I'm gonna be honest. Well, maybe. You never know. You never know.
I
Ken.
don't see why you
maybe.
wouldn't. Like, Toronto seems like a perfect place for you.
I'll tell you what. The place I really want to go in Canada is Quebec. That or Montreal. Because I speak a little French. Although I've been told
Come on,
I've
now.
been told that
Let's do the rest of this in French. Tu parles français?
je parle un peu. Yeah.
Un petit peu en français?
I could, if I went to, like, obviously my accent's terrible. Like, if I went to France, they'd be like, please just speak English to me.
Oh my God. I went to France. They're like, please do not use that swill of
that
French
trash
that you're trying to speak.
Yeah, exactly. But I when I was in college, I got to elementary proficiency because I took 4 semesters of it. So I could speak like a 6-year-old in French.
Like ça c'est rouge. Yes, sir. It is red. Thank you for
Yes,
that.
that is the degree. I could order at a restaurant.
I have gotten so rusty with my French skills because I did French immersion from the 5th grade to the 10th grade. And then eventually I was just like, screw this. I don't care about speaking French anymore. But you do 5 straight years of everything you do in French to learn French. It's all there. But when you don't speak it, you speak it once every 5 years. Like, I don't go to Quebec that often. And I feel like I've been to France more than I've been to Quebec recently. So you just lose words. Like, you start talking and you're like, what is, like, in your mind, you're like, I don't know. I can't remember what the word is for that anymore. Like, that stuff just goes.
I've been doing French Duolingo for like a year-ish. And some of the lessons or whatever, I'll be like, I could do that with my eyes closed. Like, I know all those words, but then you'll get to a new segment and you'll be like, I have no concept to access the words to, I don't know, buy a pair of pants at the store or whatever. Like, it just like, because if you don't know the one verb or you don't know the one noun, then you're totally lost. It is just that interesting thing about language where, like, oh, I can read this sentence, but that sentence is totally foreign to me.
I could always read it better than I could speak it.
Well, it's easier to read, right?
Of course. And that's how you learn it. Like, you're going through, you have your bechamel out and you're trying to conjugate everything so it's in the proper tense and you get used to that. But even to speak it doesn't, I mean, maybe it's more Quebec French, which I was taught, than anything. And maybe it's just, like I said, just crazy person French. But the way that people speak it does not mimic. Like, Cust is perfectly fluent in French, reading and writing. Because when you do a PhD in Canada, you are not allowed to graduate unless you are bilingual. That's like a provision with becoming a PhD in this country from the universities. But he gets, I mean, it's not, he more than gets by. I think he actually runs a French team as a part of his job. Like, half his team is in French, half his team's in English. But he sounds like a Canadian guy who reads textbook French. We had a German professor in college, Dr. Bale, who he'd see me outside smoke. He said, "Thank you for paying my taxes." I'm like, all right. But really his English was to the point proper. Like, no one would ever speak like that. And I find it's the same way in French, where you learn it through writing and how to properly do it. But when you hear it in application and people speaking back and forth, it would almost be like you learn how to speak another language a lot of times, like AI would try to talk to you in English.
Exactly.
Like, there's no nuance there. You don't know colloquialisms.
You don't learn
understand
slang.
Any of the casual stuff, how people actually speak. But you can communicate, obviously, because you're doing it the right way. They know what you're saying, and you can go back and forth, but it's not authentic in any sort of way.
Yes. And I mean, the other thing about French is they speak so quickly. Right. It's just, and maybe that's just how every language
I think
feels,
that's just, I think that anytime that you do not speak another language, but you know parts of it, that they're speaking at exactly the same pace that we are. It's just, you don't process it in real time like you would English.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done the, watch the Jean-Luc Godard movies and things to try and like, that was a lot of like what I did in college was I watched those to try and pick up on some more of the colloquial stuff, and that's pretty hard.
additionally, that was one of the big things. Like you see it with the Canadian Prime Minister a lot of the times that you have to be somewhat bilingual. But like Trudeau was like fluent French, fluent English. Like when he would give his English speeches, it would be in like one tone. He would do his French speeches, and they would be in the French tone. And you see most of the prime ministers are either French speakers who speak English in a really weird way. And even the guy who's in there now, Mark Carney, Stephen Harper was like this too. Like they know enough French to get by and can spit out sentences in French, but it's very clear they couldn't just riff in French for a while.
Right. Yeah, which is interesting. All right, this can be our Canadian politics corner. So last time we spoke, we had it was the 51st state. It was the Four Nations games were happening. We thought the great United States of America was going to subsume our northern neighbors. You guys
hasn't gone away, by the way. That's still ongoing.
So that I would say just for the standard American news diet,
it's gone.
We're not hearing about this anymore. So this
it's all we really get.
Corner.
It's all we really get to hear about. I'm just like, people still don't like that. Still very unpopular up here.
Well, I can imagine. Right?
There is an Alberta separatist movement currently going on. That's hilarious.
Well, I'm familiar with the Quebec separatist stuff that's existed for a long. It's a huge plot point in one of my favorite books, actually. But what is the Albertan separatist movement?
It's just they're people who basically want to be American, and they want to be able to reap the rewards of everything that Alberta provides, which they do. They provide a ton of gas and oil, and they feel like the rest of the country doesn't respect them enough. So like they were heavy, like they weren't heavy, but like some of the conservative ridings out there, which really skewed the overall like popular vote within Canada. Although I think the Liberals ended up winning the popular vote by the end of it. But the past few elections, the Conservative Party has won the popular vote, yet been a clear number 2 in seats because they win some of these ridings like 90% to 10%. Because when you get to like the heartland of Alberta, it's just like, no, we hate the rest of the country. The rest of the country, they feel, hates us. They don't do anything for us. We'd rather be our own independent state or a part of America. But I think the recent polling on is like 27% of polled Albertans would like to separate. So it's not going to happen, but it's out there in the ether, much more than it is with Quebec, weirdly, at this point. Quebec back on Team Canada.
So what happened in the most recent big Canadian election? Were the results expected? Like what was it all a response to the 51st state stuff? Like what happened in this election?
Well, I think that's what we talked about last time I was on, that Trudeau was stepping down and this 51st state stuff started coming up and the Liberals replaced their leader. And the Conservatives, I believe at the time, maybe when we spoke or maybe it had already started to happen. The 51st state stuff had already started to happen. Then the shift started to come. But there was a point in January where the Conservatives were minus 1,400 to win the Canadian election and they lost. And by the time it got within the moment that Trudeau stepped away and Carney replaced him, it basically flipped. Like you can just go to Polymarket and just see it. It went from like a 9% chance that the Liberals win the election to I think that the day of they were like an 83% favorite. Like that's how big of the entire Conservative campaign was predicated on we hate Justin Trudeau.
We hate Trudeau.
And they didn't pivot. They were like, yeah, we still hate Trudeau. It's like, well, Trudeau's not running anymore, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, like that's actually very analogous to American politics, where the American left or the Democrats really didn't have an identifiable position in the 2024 election other than being against Donald Trump, which seems like a bad way. If I was paid a crazy consulting fee, that would not be the way I would advise any political party. You don't want to define yourself against an opponent. You want to define yourself by ideas.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's one of the key things that Trump actually does. He has ideas. He's not lacking ideas.
No. There's lots of ideas, yeah, that are out there. So what
happened was Poilievre, he was a bit smarmy, so that didn't help either. Like it's funny because the guy who ran for the Conservatives last time would have still won this election. He was a pretty moderate conservative and he was pretty affable. People seemed to like him. They just at the time didn't like they ran the pandemic election. And I think Trudeau was the only one of the major leaders of like G8 countries to survive and like keep his government during the pandemic. Almost everything switched for everyone. Like, Trump was out the first time, then Trump gets back in. It was very hard to hold on to power because there was so much stuff out of people's control. Like, what are you going to do? Sometimes you get dealt a bad hand. People want something different. Of course, like life sucked for a while. And who are you going to blame? The head of state. That only makes sense. So I completely understand that. But Trudeau was able to hold on to it against Aaron O'Toole. I think it was the Aaron O'Toole one, or maybe it was the Andrew Scheer one. Aaron O'Toole is who I'm talking about. If he had just run again, because Poilievre he was known as, like, within the House of Commons as sort of like the attack dog for the former prime minister. So he's very good at not being in power and just causing a ruckus the entire time. In the House of Commons, they still do like the bang on it's very like British.
Yeah, is there an easier job in politics than leader of the minority opposition?
No,
right? I mean, that's that has to be, you just say, the current thing sucks. And because the current thing sucks, this is our proposed solution. And people don't even think critically about the proposed solution. They're just like, yeah, absolutely. The current thing stinks.
Well, the other problem was that Poilievre got labeled, I mean, very wisely by the left as sort of like a mega light candidate, which appeals to some Canadians, but the vast majority, it does not. I don't actually believe that's true. But he really leaned in hard to catchphrases. Like he was all about, there's a carbon tax in Canada. He was just, all of his commercials were like, Trudeau sucks, axe the tax. A lot of stuff that rhymed. And then the first thing, it was a pretty savvy move, that the first thing Carney did when he became the Liberal leader as a part of his platform, he's like, I agree with Poilievre, we're going to axe the tax. Then he's like, he had nothing else. What was he going to do? Kill this guy for agreeing with him?
That's always an underrated political move, to be like, actually, this thing that the opposition's saying, I totally agree. And we're going to keep all this other stuff that we believe in. But this one really good point that my opponent made, we're just going to co-opt that idea. So if you elect us, you get this.
And Carney really benefited from like a complete lack of vetting. Like no one really knows, even now, no one really knows who he is. He's just some rich dude who parachuted in. But he was like, I think he was the former Bank of England. Like he ran that for a while. Like he's just a hedge fund guy. And then he came back to Canada. He's like, I would like to help fix Canada. And they were like, you know what? You seem like and I mean, Trump really did go a long way into helping Carney out big time because he hated Trudeau so much, was constantly like ragging on Trudeau, the 51st state stuff. And Poilievre had a very weak response to it, which really didn't help him. He eventually got on the same page with all of the other Canadian leaders, but the other Canadian leaders were like, first time it was said, came out, it's like, no, not happening. Whereas it took Poilievre like a week to realize that's what actually Canadians wanted to hear. They didn't want like, no, we can work together on this. And maybe it's not such a terrible idea. And then that kind of got pushed out and that became like the prevailing narrative. But Trump and Carney not necessarily get along, but he's not calling him Governor Carney like he was to Trudeau. He really hated Trudeau. I think it's because Melania like found Trudeau pretty sexy. Carney's just like an old staunchy businessman. They ran someone that you couldn't throw like wokeness at. Like Carney is basically 20 years ago, he'd be a conservative. Now he's just a centrist who runs for the Liberal Party. Like he appealed to voters like me who could kind of go either way depending on the candidate because the parties aren't all that different. It does seem like the Conservative Party right now has taken a further step right than they normally would have. And that really did. They thought they were going to win by so much that they could get away with some of the stuff. But when the polls started to close, when there were new leaders put in place, that was a bad strategy at that point. That alienated a lot of the centrist voters that just were sick of Trudeau and wanted someone else. Now they have someone else that more is in line with the type of guy that they want. He also seems like a statesman, which I think is something that's very underrated in Canadian politics, that while people didn't like Trudeau, they actually liked how he represented Canada. Sometimes he was an absolute joke, but other times it seemed like besides Trump, the other world leaders actually really did respect him. And like when you would see him at G8 conferences, like he could speak any language. Like he seemed like kind of like the cool kid leader amongst all the other leaders, which was like not a place Canada's usually in. Now there's more of a...
That's underrated. That's very underrated.
And now Carney comes in because the primary issue is dealing with Trump. He seems like the man for the moment to deal with Trump. That's why he won.
Everyone's defining themselves against Trump. I mean, kind of the last time.
But he never positioned himself against Trump, which I think was a very smart thing. He's like, I can work with Trump. Trump will work with me. We speak the same business language, basically. And Trump has worked with him pretty well. And most of like you said, most of this stuff in the news has just gone away.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens if Don tries to run for a third time, or if they try and make Vance the face of American conservatives, because Vance is just not nearly as likable. Like the thing about Don is that like he's funny. I don't like him, but he is very funny. I don't think JD Vance is particularly funny at all.
No, and he's the Tim Andercust of politics. Everyone he talks to dies.
That's true. Yeah, very very bizarre, very strange. Actually,
but the hard thing is going to be, because you saw this with the 2022 midterms when the red wave was projected. Trump brings so much of a base out to vote that just doesn't vote and won't vote if he's not on the ticket, that it's going to be hard for them to keep some of these gains if he goes away. So they kind of have to figure out a way to make him involved somehow. Also, how old is Trump at this point? 80 something?
Believe he is 79 years old. Donald Trump age 70. Yeah, he will turn 79 in 9 days.
Okay. I mean, there has to be enough constitutional Republicans that are like, no, this isn't happening. You have to believe that's the case, right?
No, I don't believe that at all. I think if he is up to it, if he wants to do it, I think they'll just do it. I think they'll just, yeah. That would be my read. Now, maybe he just doesn't want to do it. He might just be like, I'm old. I want to go golf, like whatever.
I got this plane. Do you see Bryson was there at the White House yesterday? Just hitting balls in the backyard.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. Listen, Bryson's whole thing is like this online persona now. There's no better like stunt to do than that.
No, Bryson is. Look, I am not mad at Bryson in any way, shape, or form. I think people would think me as big lefty. I'd be like, Bryson, this dude stinks. Can't believe he's a mega guy. It's like whatever, dude. Bryson.
Of course,
Bryson's
he's a professional golfer.
He's in it for the content, right? Yeah, you want to start asking. Yeah, don't start asking professional golfers their politics. If you're a lefty. But yeah, I mean, look, they have the majority of the Supreme Court. If Don wants to be the president again, I think he could probably just get it done.
See, I disagree. It depends on whether they go along with the Supreme Court or not. I think there's enough constitutional scholars on the Supreme Court that it would be a 9-0 vote the other way.
I mean, maybe I'm just being a doomer, but that would be my thought. Would be that if the powers that be really wanted it, but there's just no need, because I think, I don't know, if we pulled up Polymarket right now, I'd bet Vance is like a huge favorite over, I don't know, AOC or Pete Buttigieg or whatever.
Well, when was the last time a sitting vice president actually won an election? George H.W. Bush?
The last time a sitting vice president. That sounds right. So
88, and Reagan was still at like the height of his popularity, and that translated over to George Bush Sr. He ended up winning, but the rest of them have just done very poorly. I guess technically Biden ended up winning, but he didn't run in that election after being vice president.
So here's some good trivia. George H.W. Bush won in 1988. The last sitting vice president to win an election was Martin Van Buren in 1836.
The Van Buren boys, they showed up to the polls.
Yeah, the Van Buren boys. Yeah.
Well, I guess technically, didn't Johnson win? I guess he would be. He wasn't the sitting vice president. He would have been the sitting president when he won, but he was JFK's vice president, so he ended up. Yeah, because Ford became president after Nixon got ousted. Then he lost to Carter. Yeah, there's been. They always talk about like the presumptive nominee is going to be the sitting vice president. It just doesn't work out all that well. You need to have such incredible popularity as a 2-term president to push that forward. And it doesn't even matter how popular you were for the first 7 years. It depends on how popular that president is in the 8th year, which is usually not very popular.
Yeah, I mean, so Obama obviously was still pretty popular amongst his base, right? His base had not turned on him by the end. I mean, it's so funny, but obviously American lefties, if you would have offered them a third term of Obama and they were on truth serum, they would have been like, yeah, Constitution who? I don't know her. Let me get 4 more years of Obama. But in my lifetime, he would have been the only president, I think, who would have. I mean, I'm only 32, but yeah, George Bush Jr. obviously would not have won. Would Reagan have gotten a third term? I don't really know how popular he was at the end.
He was popular basically the entire time, not amongst everyone, obviously,
Right.
but amongst enough, probably the majority of Americans. I would like to take a look to see how popular Clinton was towards the end, because Gore almost won.
Yes. How popular was George? I mean, Google AI is going to give me the worst. I said George Clinton instead of Bill Clinton.
George Clinton, he'll bring you the funk to the polls.
At the end of his term. Google AI. Okay, approval ratings of Bill Clinton. 66% approval was the final poll taken for him, according to Gallup. So,
which is a astonishingly high number.
It's really high. Yeah.
Well, the economy, he came out of the scandal stuff. Like it wasn't necessarily like in the past, but he has been through it at that point, and the economy was still good. If the economy's good, you're gonna win. If the economy's bad, you're gonna lose. That's essentially the one thing that matters.
Right. Which is so interesting, because right now the world, like the Western world, is so interesting. The economy being good is such a eye of the beholder type situation, right? Because the stocks are really good, the market's really up, but then there are like crazy.
Is the market really up? I thought the market tanked, and now it's kind of back to where it was.
Well, the market is really up relative to where it would have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. But there are recession indicators everywhere, right? Like anywhere you want to look, there's like crazy recession indicators. So who do you believe on the state of the economy?
And so much of that, I believe, is out of the control of anyone. It's the result. It's the result of the printing money of the pandemic. Like this was eventually going to come home to roost.
On the money printing, right?
Yeah, like this was gonna happen at some point. The fact that it hasn't happened yet is actually kind of shocking. So we'll see where it ends up going. Recessions are no fun for anyone. Probably good for us because more people will gamble.
Yeah, the worse you feel about your economic future, the more likely you are to just try and hit that 100x and change your life.
I want you to think about 2 things. 1, what makes your father special? Number 2, what makes all fathers the same? The answer to number 2 is that they are impossible to buy Father's Day gifts for. Who knows what your dad needs? But I can tell you one thing that the vast majority, almost all of fathers enjoy: steak. Barbecuing. It's perfect. When it comes to Father's Day, some things never change. A recent survey shows 75% of Americans agree there's no better way to spend Father's Day than grilling with the family. So, shop omahasteaks.com and give your dad the legendary Heartland quality he deserves. Plus, my listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code MAYO at checkout. Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917. A family-owned company with over 100 years of expertise in the meat industry. They also carry mouth-watering burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, dessert, and easy-to-prepare comfort food. This Father's Day, give Dad the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for a guaranteed perfect gifts that deliver legendary quality. For an extra $35 off, use promo code MAYO at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code MAYO at checkout. See site for details. Are you feeling stuck in your daily wellness routine? You're not alone on that. Our friends at Cornbread Hemp hear you. Yes, they're listening and they hear you. Their organic CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress, poor sleep, or just needing a moment to unwind, because Lord knows we should be taking more moments to unwind. CBD might be just what you need to level up your daily routine. Cornbread Hemp uses only the best of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest, most potent CBD. No fillers, no junk, just full spectrum goodness. And right now, Pat Mayo Experience listeners can save 30% off your first order. Just head to cornbread.com/PatMayo and use code PatMayo at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/PatMayo and use code PatMayo. The Travelers Championship, the Northeast one and only PGA Tour signature event. Can it surpass the excitement of last year's thrilling finale when Scottie Scheffler broke away from the loaded leaderboard with 3 straight birdies in the back 9 during the final round, leading to a dramatic one-hole playoff with Tom Kim winning him his 6th PGA Tour victory of the year? Will Scottie repeat as champion? Come watch as the world's best PGA Tour players try to dethrone him. All of them competing all 4 days at TPC River Highlands. The action begins June 19th and runs through June 22nd. For tickets and information, visit TravelersChampionship.com to see the greats, including Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Ludwig Oberg, and the rest. The Travelers Championship. There is only one.
So I meant to bring this up earlier when we were talking about Canadian politics. It's a less good seg now, but nothing is less popular in the American imagination that has a higher approval rating than hockey. I've never met one person who's like, oh, I don't like watching hockey. I don't like going to a hockey game, right? You bring up hockey around Americans and they're like, oh, love it. Yeah, great. But as a popularity thing, like baseball is more popular in America than hockey. It makes more money on TV, higher average attendances despite there being more games. I guess my question for you is, why is that? What is why is something that everyone seems to universally like here not as popular? It really makes no sense to me.
Well, I think this goes back to the discussion that we had about the NBA a little bit of why and people like to really overblow like the NBA's ratings are way down. Like the NBA is doing fine. But I think part of it's like step down in popularity of the public consciousness, as I said at the time, I think has a lot to do with the influence of foreign players on the NBA, that all of the best players are not American anymore. Even Shea is Canadian.
Yeah, my boy. And Lou Dort, Canadian as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like Lou Dort has less of an impact on when you're talking about like Anthony Edwards is probably the best, most recognizable outside of like LeBron and Steph, who are my age, that of the next wave of great NBA players, it's probably Ant.
Yeah, I mean, Ant is the one who is being marketed as like the next face of the NBA. Like that is I think the league would love for Anthony Edwards to carry, like to take like Kevin Durant's place, right?
Sure, but the issue becomes that Ant's not the best player in the league. He's like the 8th best player in the league. That's a problem.
Maybe not even, right?
Maybe not, but like you'd put him behind Shea, Jokic, probably Luka, Giannis. Like there's 4 foreign players right there, and then you can keep going down the list. That I think that hockey suffers from a problem that it's not an American sport. It's perceived as a Canadian sport. And I think that whereas baseball is America, although basketball founded by a Canadian is more of an American, it's more of a global sport now. And that's what we're starting to see. But
is James Naismith a Canadian? I did not know that.
He is.
I really did not know that.
Yeah, we have Canadian heritage moments up here. Or at least we used to 20 years ago on TV. That was one of them. He had the peach baskets. Like, I need to borrow these peach baskets. And he cut the hole in the bottom of it. And then they had like the ball wouldn't go all the way through. So they had guys standing underneath the basket with like a broom to pop the ball back up to come on through. And then the janitor says, I need these baskets back. I don't know what happened, but that's the story of James Naismith inventing basketball. But I think he did it in Springfield, Illinois. So it was invented in America, but by a Canadian.
Yeah, and he was a professor at my rival college. He was employed by Kansas University, and I went to Kansas State. So there you go.
But so the globalization of basketball, I think that domestically has hurt it, although profits are up bigly throughout the world because it's becoming more popular throughout the world. Hockey has a similar problem and inherent built-in disadvantages as well. Like you live in St. Louis. How cold does it get in the winter in St. Louis? Is it enough that the lakes freeze and you can go play hockey?
Maybe, I don't know, maybe once every couple of years,
Yeah.
but 'cause, like, probably not since I've lived here. No.
So I think if you ask that question in Minnesota, it would be a lot different. Like even
Right.
anywhere in the Northeast, go to Maine, go to New Hampshire, go to Vermont, go to Boston, go to Connecticut, go to the upper state of upper New York, even Jersey, parts of Michigan. They have the Dakotas. Not so much Washington State because I don't think it gets as cold there, but anywhere where it's cold for an extended period of time, hockey is inherently going to be more popular because more people are going to play hockey, and it being the most expensive sport by far, you alienate a lot of people, especially in warmer states, that it's simply going to cost more money to go and play hockey, that the barrier for entry is so damn high that I would guess that only rich kids play hockey.
Yeah, same thing as soccer, right?
Yeah,
Only rich kids.
but that's not true though, because there are costs that go with soccer that it can be expensive. You can grab 9 other friends and a soccer ball and go to a field and play soccer. You cannot do that with hockey in a warm state. You can in cold states. You can go get a puck, some sticks, a skate, and go on a pond,
Right.
because it's cold enough, and you can go play. If you do not have access to that, look, we have public rinks here. Like I brought my kids to learn how to skate.
That's crazy.
Up at my school. Now it was pretty, like where I live, it's not actually the best for it because it doesn't get that cold during the
Right.
winter. Like I don't know if maybe for 2 weeks in February, the ponds actually and the lakes actually froze that you could safely go skate on them. But we were able to upkeep, like basically they convert the tennis, where there are tennis courts in the summer publicly, they'll just put in a filter and it'll be just people within the neighborhood that go do it. Like it's approved by the city, but like 4 or 5 parents will keep it up, take rotations of flooding the rink and making sure it's fine, basically Zamboniing it at the end of the day. But it's open to little kids, big kids, whatever it is, that they can just get a pair of skates and go up and skate on a tennis court during the middle of winter. It's how I taught my kids to skate this year. And it's more prevalent in Quebec and Ontario. Like they are everywhere, and it stays cold enough the entire time in those 2 places where you can get that done. But it's just a part of the culture here, where it would be a part of the culture in New England, in Minnesota, probably the Dakotas as well, that you can do these things, and it just becomes more a part of the culture that way, that people are actually doing it. Hockey seems like such a fantasy idea, I think, to a lot of people, that they see it on TV, and it is fun to go to a game. Hockey, although I don't love hockey and I really dislike the TV product, it still is my favorite sport to go watch live. And many people share that experience. And I think that's actually kind of a drawback to the money-making part of the league as well, that football sucks to go to live. So what are you going to do?
Sucks.
You're going to watch it on TV.
Yeah, sucks to go to live. That's true.
Where hockey, it's so fast and so exciting when you go watch it in person. When you watch it on TV, it's kind of boring, and then people don't watch it because the experience of going is so much better.
Yeah, that is 100% true. You want to know another thing that I am just kind of realizing this now. Probably the best American player, if you broke it down by like points per game or whatever, is Austin Matthews. I think he's probably the best American. And
You're talking to the wrong person about like an in-depth hockey discussion. I listen. All we get indoctrinated with in Canada is Leafs media. So sure, he's the best.
Well, there you go. So this is the issue. Plays for the Leafs.
No, see, I actually don't think that's that big of a deal, because the Leafs versus all of the other professional, like I really can't stand when people are like, the big 4 sports. There is no big 4 sports. There's football, and then there's college football. Those are the big 2 sports. There's the one big sport. There's the next biggest sport. Then it's kind of like NBA, baseball, college basketball. They're next. Hockey might as well be fucking UFC.
Yeah, hockey is as popular as like the MLS or whatever, probably. Truly.
I refuse to believe anyone cares about the MLS. It's just, I've never seen it.
Frankly, I love to go. MLS games. I would actually compare it to kind of how I feel about hockey. I don't follow it a ton during the regular season. I'm happy to go if like a friend comes down, like, oh, what are we gonna do? Let's go to a Blues game. Let's go to a MLS game. It's cool when they're good. I don't care really either way if they're not. Like it's cool to go to like a Blues playoff game. And sometimes they will play the Avalanche, which is the team that I care about for hockey. Not that I'm like a diehard fan or anything.
My dad also a big Avalanche fan.
What's that?
My dad is also a big Avalanche fan.
My dad was a big Avalanche fan, is a big Avalanche fan.
My dad was a big Quebec Nordique fan, and he followed them to Denver.
Yeah. I actually have some Quebec Nordiques stuff because it's just so cool, right? The Quebec Nordiques like gear. Very, very cool.
But the point I was trying to emphasize when it comes to hockey versus basketball, baseball, or I mean the NFL, there is no Canadian team. But if you're talking about like the Raptors or Jays, kind of out of sight, out of mind in a lot of ways, despite being in, I think, the third biggest market in North America, it just doesn't resonate with American fans that same way. I would guess that within hockey fans, if you are an original six team, you're a big team, regardless of what it is, like drawing power wise, because a lot of the attendance numbers, no matter where you go, especially with the Florida teams, like if they're playing the Leafs or the Canadians, those are sellouts from people from Canada who live in Florida who are going to go see these games. There's enough fans of those teams around, not just Canada, but North America, that they are premier franchises within the sport. So I don't think that playing for the Maple Leafs, which is arguably the biggest team in hockey, would detract from an American player being good, because simply because it's not in America. It feels to me like Americans don't see hockey players as American anyway. They're just like a version of Canadian.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Like someone would be like, oh, Austin Matthews, he's got to be Canadian, right?
Yeah, they assume, unless you have a very Russian or European name, I just think people assume that all hockey players are Canadian, which they are not. There's a lot of great American players.
There's a lot of great American players. You couldn't be more correct about that, though. It's just the thing is like, so culturally, America is like drifting right now, right? Like just things that are more stereotypically like masculine, gender roles, whatever, are just like more popular, more in vogue right now. And you can feel however you want about that, but it's just certainly true. And like, what is more masculine than ice hockey, right? You know, fights, like, well, sure, football, yeah, obviously, right? But hockey, very similar elements to football, right? You could see the players' faces, right? Because they sit on the bench. Like that is something that you can't with football. It's kind of it's actually one of the things that people like about football, I think, is that you can kind of just anonymize these guys, but it's like hard hitting, it's fast. I mean, that's the thing. Like hockey games, dude, you just put it on. The intermissions suck, but like the lack of commercials is awesome.
Yeah, but Americans, this was the Fox problem when they took over hockey in the 90s and they put like the streak behind the puck. Americans, if you do not grow up with hockey and watching
you don't
hockey,
know how to watch it.
You have a very difficult time telling what's going on.
Yeah. Even like strategy elements, like I know a little bit about like, oh, your forwards need to do this and like Corsi and whatever, but like strategically, yeah, it does not make sense to an American.
No, it's the same thing. Like when I played box lacrosse for 8 years or so, like what the NLL plays. And it's funny, you think that would end up catching on a little bit more. But again, that's painted as like a Canadian type game. That's fast. That's exciting. There's legitimate fist fights that are legal in the NLL. And they are fun games to go to. We have a team in Halifax now. It's awesome. Go Thunderbirds. Maybe come back next year, win the NLL Cup. But the entire strategy is basketball based. Like if you can understand the strategy of lacrosse, you understand the strategy of basketball, which I thought would have translated more, but I don't think the people actually see it that way. Like, because no one actually tunes in the first place, but it's just pick and rolls the entire time. And the only really big thing is that the defense runs to the bench once players get the ball and the offense runs on. You have to do like big, like line changes. So people equate it with hockey that way, although the game is far more like basketball strategy wise than anything else.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I don't know how field lacrosse works. I've always just, although those goalies I feel very bad for because they don't wear gear, but that's country club lacrosse.
God, we don't need that. All right, last thing, then we'll get out of here. How's your golf game?
It's funny. I actually have a show coming out this week because obviously I'm going to have a ton of U.S. Open shows. But I talked to Andrew Novak. You know Andrew Novak?
Yeah, I sent him a DM. He never responded back to me. Tough scene.
Well, he responded back to me. We recorded a show last night. I was talking to him before we went on. I just started to have like elbow pain the other day because I played Oakmont on a sim with my golf coach who shot 3 under on the sim. Fun times. And I was horrible. And like halfway through, like my elbow just started killing me. I was like, oh my God, do I have like tennis elbow or golfer elbow or whatever? Like, is this going to affect?
I got golfer elbow so bad I had to have a surgery on it.
Are you serious? So,
Yeah.
so the problem is, like, I can feel it, but it subsided a little bit. I just started taking ibuprofen. Now I don't feel it at all. But I also did like a big arm workout right before I went to go play. So I think I may have just lifted too much weight, like doing hammer curls. That I think that was the problem. It wasn't like a repetitive motion type thing. I just put too much strain on the tendon because I didn't feel it in my wrist. I didn't feel it in my forearm. It was actually just at like the tendon joint of my elbow. When you had it, how did it feel to you? Like, was it a forearm pain, elbow pain, and wrist pain, or just elbow pain?
Elbow and forearm.
Yeah, because I don't feel anything in my forearm or my wrist. It's just concentrated like right there.
I mean, it would be, so what would happen is I would, it was right after I graduated college. I didn't know anything about golf. I was terrible at golf, but I played all the time because I had tons of free time. And I also started lifting weights for the first time in my life at this point. And so I was doing a lot of weightlifting, probably with terrible form, not really knowing what I was doing, and golfing a ton with terrible form, not really knowing what I was doing, and just like basically just like shredded the tendon. And it got so bad and so painful, I couldn't lift and I couldn't play golf. And I like basically like rested it for like 3 months, went to go see an orthopedic surgeon. I think I saw a doctor first, an orthopedic doctor first. And he like poked and prodded and was like, yeah, it's I believe it's called lateral epicondylitis is like the technical term. And he was basically just like, you have just shredded this muscle on the outside. Like you just have overworked it. Now I'm what, 6-7 years on from this, had the surgery, didn't do anything for 6 weeks, very like did some PT, and basically like brand new, like have never had a problem with it again. Learned some good lifting stuff, totally like just basically fixed the problem, like exactly how you'd want a surgery to do. So
good. So I'm hoping that that's not what this is, because I'm going to go play tomorrow morning. Actually, when you asked me to do the show last week, I was at the golf course. Like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to have time to do this.
I've been playing a ton.
I have been. I'm playing like 3 times a week. I got back from Cabot last week. It's funny because my ball striking has vastly improved year over year. Like the last time I went, it was the best ball striking round I've had maybe ever, just driving and irons. I 3-putted 14 greens and I shot an 85. And it was like the second worst score that I've shot this year. And it's funny to think about like how well you're striking the ball in the rounds where even the round where I shot like 78 earlier this year was not striking the ball particularly well. It wasn't hitting it out of bounds or anything, but my short game and my putting were electric. Why can't I get all 4 facets of my game to line up at the same time? Why is that too much to ask? Just once I want it. That I'm ball striking and making putts. That doesn't happen to me.
I mean, it's just, that's the nature of the game. Like I last weekend, very similar. I think I've told you this before. I used to not hit driver at all just because I couldn't keep it in play.
Yeah, now because of traditional gender roles coming back into vogue, you're like, I'm a man, I need to hit driver. I'm almost 40.
Well, it was more that I played a bunch of rounds last year in the 80s, like 84, 85, 86, without hitting driver. I'm like, dude, I mean, I'm probably like one of those rounds, if I would have hit driver and they would have, been good drives or whatever, I could have been in the 70s, but I just wasn't close enough to the hole on any of them. And my scoring is obviously already improved, but it just hasn't, putting, short game hasn't all come together in one round yet.
Well, the biggest thing that happened to me was at my course, the course is actually in tremendous condition for Nova Scotia in May, considering it's been cold and raining the entire time. Very green, very lush, but they had to punch the greens as they do like earlier on in the seasons. They had to aerate them, and then they had to sand them in order to get like the final cut for the rest of the summer to come down, because we have 9,500 square foot greens. They're massive. And they roll very fast. But at this time of the year, they roll incredibly slow. So I was playing, like, it's been wet, they're sandy, they're just not rolling fast. And I got very used, I probably played like 10 rounds, got very used to the speed of the greens. And then I went up to Cabot. Those greens were faster. I struggled a little bit with my putting the first day, a lot better the second day. And then I got back to my course like a week and a half later to play for the first time. And they're starting to mimic more like what you would see in the middle of summer. Like they're fast again. And I'm either 10 feet short on every putt or 10, 20 feet blowing it by. Like I got so used to the speeds being slow that it's just, I'm absolutely rattled every time I step over a putt now.
There you go. Don't get rattled. All right,
But
folks.
you need to hit driver. Here's the big thing.
Yeah,
of why,
I hit driver every round now.
But here's the reason why you should anyway, because I know a few people that put driver away. You think it's a good idea because in your mind you hit that club, the 3-wood. I don't even have a 3-wood. I have a 3 hybrid in my bag that I will
Same.
tee off with on shorter holes where I literally driver's too much that I put myself into a bad spot if I have driver. But I hit that club pretty well. But when I miss hit my hybrid, it's a triple bogey because it's like popped in front of me, or it's like dead slice to the right, and it's
Right.
OB, and I'm so far away from the hole. At least with a driver, you probably hit it about as good as you hit the other clubs. It's just not as straight as some of the other clubs, although you probably hit the fairway just as often. And the misses with a driver, well, not great. It could be OB. You're just in a better spot. Like, it's not 4 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
It's like I really try not to tee off with irons off the tee, even in situations where it might call for it, unless I can get away with hitting a 7-iron off the tee, which is a club that I do consistently hit well. Like, you put a 5-iron in my hand, I hit driver better than I hit 5-iron.
Yeah. It's for me, it was either 3 hybrid or driver. But yeah, I mean, and I don't hit the ball very far because my swing is so bad mechanically. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
But I have this video on The Sims, like, where I hurt my elbow and I was just striking it back. I felt so good going into that. Like, I'm going to film this. We're going to do like a walkthrough, and I'm going to be piping it like I was the other day. Like, I'm going to carry like 245, 250. It's going to run out to 280. People are going to think I'm awesome. That is the opposite of what happened.
That is not what happened. All right, everyone, go to the live show in Canada, subscribe to the PME, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and we'll talk to you soon.
Mayo experience. Experience.